Welcome to Towel Capes. I'm Cody Nestor. He's Andrew Hernandez.
How's it going, everyone?
And today we're talking about the latest attempt at a Hellboy film, Hellboy, the Crooked Man. Andrew, what did you think the story was?
Hellboy and company find themselves dealing with some Appalachia shenanigans while trying to transport evil Spider. They come across some witches and ultimately have to end up dealing with the Crooked Man before they can head back home.
And this is our fourth Hellboy film, new Hellboy actor. The director here for this film is Brian Taylor. He was one half of the directing duo behind such films as Crank, Crank High Voltage, Gamer, and Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance. Andrew, keep that in mind.
I uh I mean, I like Crank. I like both Crank movies. Gamer, not Michael C. Hall's best film, and boy was Ghost Rider a big old pile of dog shit.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder if are we going to call this guy? Is he the better half of that duo or the lesser half? I guess we'll find out by the end of this, right?
Right.
Andrew, what do you say? What went right with Hellboy, and what went wrong here?
So I really like that they leaned more into like the horror aspect of the Hellboy stuff. I really like, the Crooked Man, very creepy, character they're having to deal with, as opposed to like the elf guy in the second Hellboy film and Rasputin, not necessarily like, scary stuff. I like this a lot more. I like the world that they built in this. As far as like what went wrong, like I don't think that it really landed the ending. I'm sure we'll get to that like a little bit later on, but I just don't think it really stuck the landing.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't read The Crooked Man. I was hoping to have time to go back and actually read the comics. I don't know how faithful this is as an adaptation of that. I
Yeah,
think
same. I was gonna see if I could read that too, but yeah, same. Didn't have time for it.
couldn't get around to it, so we can't really speak to that. But I mean, generic story for sure. I don't think it quite sticks the landing, and like I said, we'll talk about maybe what could have been done differently throughout. I do like that it's a smaller, more self-contained story. It's not like you said the world-ending stakes of like Rasputin from the first Ron Perlman Hellboy, or even what was going on with the Golden Army. It's just a little small story, and it's a little self-contained. And I'm like, I think Hellboy works as a character a lot with those types of stories, and that's what the comic has done for a lot of years, is those self-contained stories and little adventures and one-offs through his history. So I think that's what definitely works here, and I think some of the other stuff we'll talk about is what doesn't work as much. The big question here, though, what did you think of our new Hellboy actor? I think it's Jack Kesy as
Hmm.
Hellboy. What did you think of his performance as Hellboy?
I really liked it. I if we're gonna rank them, I think
Mm-hmm.
Ron Perlman, obviously, I still put him at the top. Um, but I think he's definitely number two. Not saying like David Harbour did like a terrible fucking job, but I like how nonchalant isn't the word that I'm looking for.
Yeah,
He's just very like as like matter of fact, like he's just trying to fucking get
kind of
this
like it is
over
what it
with.
is.
Yeah, he's just another day. He's just trying to get through this, like not over the top, not crazy. Like it's just I liked it. I liked his performance.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of trying to think about how I'd classify him. Like I said, I wouldn't say it's nonchalant either. I would say it's like go with the flow. It is what it is. Another day, another dollar type of attitude he has. It's not Ron Perlman. I still, like I said, the ranking is still here. I think Ron Perlman's at the top. Ron Perlman's Hellboy sometimes has more of that comedic edge, and I
Yeah.
think David Harbour's has a little bit more of a harder edge and some humor. And I think this kind of runs right in the middle of like slight humor, but more on the like, here we go again type of attitude. So, like,
Yeah.
it fits somewhere in the middle. I don't think any of the three are bad. To be fair, I never actually finished the David Harbour Hellboy. I just wasn't really interested after a point. I think I fell asleep and just never got back on that horse. But I mean, I think it fits somewhere. It's clearly your number one, and we can debate and argue back and forth between who's your number two. You know, pick your poison there. Just some things I noticed. One thing that kind of bugged me. I don't think the actor. I don't think Jack Kesy. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. I don't think he's really a smoker. So the way he was smoking sometimes kind of bugged me as a former smoker. He's too much. It's like too many puffs in a row, and he's not really. You know, you're not really smoking. It's kind of bugged me. I'm like, I don't think this guy's a smoker. For one,
you think for considering that, like, you know, he had a fucking cigarette in his mouth like every second of the film, you know, he would have been like, hey, you know, I want to get a little bit
it's
of
a
that
lot of
right.
like take a puff, not even finish that puff, do another puff to like kind of enhance the dialogue you're giving, and then do another puff, and then like blow all the air out quickly. It just kind of threw me off. And the other thing I noticed, and we'll you know, we can kind of talk about the makeup effects and practical effects and all that. There's a few shots. I have it marked down. I put the clips in here. I think I have the timestamp. The few shots where you can kind of see the Hellboy horn appliance isn't so well blended into his red head makeup in some scenes.
Yeah.
I'll put the clips in here. Little stuff like that, but that's not really about his performance. That's just little shit that popped up. And this is a lower budget Hellboy film, so let's be fair about that.
Yeah, same. Like, yeah, I mean, I caught a little bit of that too, and like some of the suit, like, you know, like where he's like trying to like get up and stuff. You could see like it wasn't really
moving.
Yeah, it wasn't moving the way it was supposed to. But I'm like, you know,
It's
I
like
can
that's
get over
not
that.
skin, that's rubber.
But
That kind
honestly,
of thing.
like I like Ron Perlman because it's like Ron Perlman. But if we could have got like Ron Perlman in like this Hellboy body, like I think that for me would have been like the perfect Hellboy for me. Like, you know, I like this design a lot more than like the bloated kind of looking you know, Ron Perlman Hellboy that we got back in the day. I like this like much more. Looks like lean.
Yeah, I think, you know, higher budget, a little bit better lighting on the bodysuit and stuff. I think it would have come out a lot better. But I think it's solid. It's fine. It never took me out of it.
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
Just kind of going through the story, you kind of give us a little bit of an introduction before. Let's just kind of run through some things here. So as we talked about, Hellboy and Bobby Joe Song, she's an agent for the BPRD, find themselves transporting a demonic spider on a train through the mountains of Appalachia. The heels are alive with the sound of witchcraft, though, Andrew, and leads the spider to kind of break free and smash the head of a disposable agent that cannot act, who was along for the ride. Hellboy ends up tussling with the spider, beats it down a little bit, and like my penis in the Appalachian winter, Andrew, it shrinks, shrivels, and runs away. Hellboy and Bobby Joe come across a shack in the woods filled with actors trying hard to have Southern accents, which really bugs me as a Southerner, and also a half-naked bewitched child on the floor. No one seems to give two shits about helping. They're just like, he's bewitched. Fuck him.
Now that you mention it, yeah, that was the whole point, that they went looking for Cora, and then they just completely fucking forgot about him, didn't they? That boy is fucking dead.
Yeah, that kid's dead. He starved to death or froze to death because nobody even put a blanket over him.
Oh, yeah, I completely freaking forgot about that. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and we learned through some exposition-heavy scenes here. The boy has been bewitched by a local girl named Cora Fisher, now turned witch. At that exact moment, did someone say Cora Fisher? Asked Jimmy from Yellowstone as he inserts himself into the scene, just like the script told him to. Jimmy from Yellowstone is playing Tom Farrell here, a young man who got seduced by a hot blonde witch who touched his pee-pee and made him boil a dead cat he found on the road to create a lucky bone that he's kept alive and kept him unharmed since he left home during the war and some other things he's got going on. His lucky bone has kept him alive and unharmed for the most of his years, and now he's back home to kind of set things right. He's back to prove that he's not a witch and to confront Mr. Anselm, the crooked man, now with the help of Hellboy. And that's pretty much your story here. It's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. Some may call it generic, but to be fair to the film, it packs in a lot of mood and atmosphere and some genuinely creepy moments
Yeah.
here and there.
Hmm.
What did you think of the look of the film and the world it kind of creates here?
I mean, as far as like a low budget film, like I thought it looked absolutely fine. I think the fact that it's like having a that it's set in like the Appalachian Mountains, and it's a lot of it's just like outdoor stuff. Probably did a lot for it, and like budget wise and stuff like that. I like that it's like set out there. Very
Mm.
you get some like you do a lot of creepy stuff with that. I mean, I thought it was fine. I thought it was looked great.
Yeah, like I said, mood and atmosphere wise, I think it does a good job. Like cinematography wise, I mean, it's not a pretty movie. It's very bland, drab, and I mean that most of that's intentional. But it's still, there's still some things you can do in there to make your shots pop a little bit more. But it's not an overly colorful. It's pretty drab, pretty bland kind of palette. But I mean, it works for that Appalachian coal country, coal mine or West Virginian type vibe that it's kind of going for. So like I was okay with everything mood and atmosphere wise. That was not a problem to me. One little question I did want to ask you, because like Hellboy and Song, they just kind of walk into this little shack, little village, little little house where they find that bewitched boy and his people, I guess you would say. Is it weird to kind of see everyone acting so nonchalantly towards Hellboy's presence? Like he's just like a normal guy, not some devil looking dude with a big gun. Is that weird to you?
No, no, I actually really, I really like that about this film, because the whole like, oh, we got to transport Hellboy in like the back of this fucking garbage truck, like in the first one, and like we got to make sure that the public doesn't see him, like
Just seen in
like
tabloid photos jumping from rooftop to
yeah,
rooftop kind of thing.
exactly, like
Apparently, there's in this universe, there's a whole like I don't know what she said, Life magazine article or something about him, and he's known. Even though these people don't have a TV, they get magazines apparently.
yeah, exactly. Like I really like the fact that like Hellboy is known, that like witches and like the supernatural like are a thing in this world, and like everyone is like aware of it, by or at least like this group of people are aware of it. And like it's a nice change of pace. I really like that he would like we didn't have to spend like part of the movie like, oh, Hellboy, you can't we gotta
Who
hide
this?
from the
The
fucking
devil. Hey Diablo.
we gotta we gotta hide from the hills have eyes people over here. We can't let
Yeah.
them see you.
Yeah.
As far as that goes, I really like that. So nice change of pace.
Yeah, I don't disagree. It is a change of pace. It just kind of threw me off for a little bit, where they're just so nonchalantly to this big, devil demon looking dude. But yeah, overall, not a con at all. Just something I wanted to throw your way. Kind of got the setup of the story out of the way. Let's talk about a few scenes here. So at one point, the gang heads off to Cora Fisher's house. They get there, they find a bunch of witchy stuff, including more witch balls, which a character called Grammy Oakham actually tells us how to make in the film. Some of the parts and scenes are kind of set up by kind of like act breaks, and one of them is teaching us how to make witches balls, very in depth.
I like that. I like these little like
It's like
these
little vignettes.
yeah, exactly. I thought it was a cool little addition to add to the movie. Fun.
When they get there, though, Cora, they find her. She's out of her body, and she's kind of left her skin behind, like the flat girl in that those Above the Influence commercials back in the day. Where she's like, oh, she got high, now she's like all flat on the couch. That's what that's what that reminded me of.
The exact same place where my brain went when I saw that in the movie. I'm like, oh, it's that chick from the fucking commercial.
Yeah, it's just a Cora bodysuit at that point. But she does return soon after. She returns as a raccoon and re-enters her body. Here's another example of one of those like kind of creepy scenes as she's kind of re-entering her body, regrowing her muscles, twisting her skin and bones and muscles back into place. It's it's a good scene. It's kind of creepy. You get some body horror, slight nudity, all pretty well executed. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, no, it was a really cool scene. I was trying to remember if we've like got anything like that like in any other kind of movie, because it's like I'm like, oh man, this is kind of fucking creepy. Like, just seeing
Yeah.
like this deflated, like, skin suit fucking, like, morph back into like this woman. And it's like, you can see all, like, the limbs twisting into place and stuff. And I'm like, ah, shit, that's fucking weird.
Yeah, I mean, and that's when the film leans into those things in those scenes, the weird stuff, the occult, supernatural stuff, like it's when it's like hits its peak.
Yeah.
It's when when it strays away from that, it doesn't work quite as well. But outside of Cora's, they meet up with a lady that Jimmy from Yellowstone is pretty familiar with. Tom's pretty familiar with, named Effie Kolb, the hot blonde who touched Tom's pee before that I mentioned. The big thing here in this scene is that she's riding a horse that turns out that it's actually Tom's father, who she's had bewitched since Tom left. So
Yeah.
she's been riding a horse this whole time. It's his daddy.
I'm like, damn, that is fucked up. Like,
That is kind of a fate worse than death,
I'm like,
which comes back
damn.
later.
Yeah.
What did you think about the scene? Kind of moving ahead a little bit. Like, let's not spend so much time then this happens and this happens type thing. Moving ahead a little bit. There's a scene where the gang, they all gang up. Cora joins the gang. They're all walking through the woods here in Appalachia, and there's a scene with Cora and a CGI snake that's kind of coming out of her vag and then going into her mouth repeatedly, kind of infinitely. What did you think about that scene?
Yeah, it was supposed to be like the Ouroboros or whatever. Like,
God bless you. I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
oh, like the snake that's like eating its own tail,
Oh.
like in like
Gotcha,
Infinity
gotcha.
or whatever. Yeah. No, I mean, I thought it was pretty cool scene. I mean the CGI looked fine. The only problem that I had in this entire movie with the CGI was that spider fight scene, like at the train in the very beginning. I'm like, holy
Right.
shit, this looks terrible. I hope the rest of the movie does not look like this, but no, it definitely looks a lot better. The rest of the movie, I mean, again, like another one of those, like, oh, this is something new and fresh that I don't think I've seen in like another movie. This is fucking creepy as shit to have
Yeah.
this infinitely spawning fucking snake. I'm like, all right,
Yeah,
I fuck with it.
I mean, yeah, you're right. The effects are a little rough. They're not the highest tier effects, obviously lower budget. I would have liked, and that's kind of, I will say a little con to me. I would have liked them to pretty much make this 99% practical. Because,
Yeah.
like, most of the rest of the movie is practical. I don't think you need a stupid spider at the beginning. And again, I don't know if that's part of the actual Crooked Man story or not, but get the big spider out. We don't need that. This is not Wild Wild West with Will Smith or whatever, John Peters production. Get the big spiders out of it. We don't need that. And, I mean, I think you could have done that scene just as well without having to have Hellboy beat up the snake. I mean, you could have used real snakes and done some creepy stuff with it. That's my big thing. Like, it's just, I would have liked to seen this done practically, because there's some good practical effects, and the time to use CGI is kind of the things they do with, like, with Hellboy firing a gun or a shovel, we'll probably talk about later on. Like, keep it 99% practical and just use it to, like, sparingly for things like that to just kind of punch up the scene a little bit. Like, I don't think you needed a full-on CGI snake. You definitely didn't need that CGI spider and some of that stuff. Like, it's working for me when it's mostly practical. Like, these not horrible, but not high-end, like, top-tier effects. Like, they're just kind of out of place in a movie that's so, for lack of a better word, pretty grounded for a movie about, like, a 6-foot-tall devil dude walking around,
Right.
But moving on. So the gang, of course, minus Cora now, she's dead. They end up at a church that Tom has been carrying his father's body to. The church is home to the completely blind Reverend Watts. Andrew, did this actor look familiar to you at all here?
That's LeVar Burton, right?
It's not LeVar Burton. No, it's not the Reading Rainbow time. I wish I were LeVar Burton. It's not. No, this actor may look familiar to some of you, because I was sitting there watching and I was doing my notes on my phone. I was like, is that? And it is Jeffrey from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, the butler.
Oh shit! Really?
Yeah, it is.
Oh wow! Oh yeah! Now that you,
Yes.
yeah, that is, isn't it? Oh, that
It
is.
is. It's just a
That's fucking crazy.
much older man now. Yes, but that is Jeffrey from the Fresh Prince of Bel Air. People will know him as the butler to the Bankses. Yeah,
Oh, okay, that's cool.
he is Reverend Watt. So they kind of meet up with him. They kind of nestle in for the night at the church, and we finally get our first look at the Crooked Man himself. I don't know about you, Andrew. Crooked Man gave me Leprechaun vibes.
Yeah, no, yeah, I get
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
I don't want nothing to do with those movies. So he gets extra points for being kind of creepy and reminding me of the Warwick Davis Leprechaun movies. I don't like those movies; they freak me out. But the Crooked Man wants to make a deal with Tom or anyone else really willing to give him Tom's lucky bone. Hellboy steps in, tells Crooked Man, you want it too bad. I mean, of course, that means Hellboy doesn't want him to have it at all. They have a little dust up. Old Crooked Man ends up kind of resurrecting some sinners buried on church land. And a little tussle, a brouhaha ensues. What did you think of the church fight scene? One of the, I guess, bigger fight scenes? Probably the biggest, I guess.
Yeah, I think it is actually the biggest fight scene. Yeah, I mean, pretty run of the mill stuff. Crooked Man can't set foot on the church grounds, so he summons the dead to attack Hellboy and the gang. I don't like this version of what's it called, the Samaritan? Is that what Hellboy's
Oh,
been
Hellboy's,
called?
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, again, I like Ron Perlman's a lot better. But we get to see that in action. Fight off some dead, and then we get to see the holy shovel put in some work.
Yeah, Tom uses his lucky cat's bone to they draw a crucifix on that shovel. That was my big thing because they're fighting with the undead here. And I kind of wish more was done with the holy shovel because I'm like, okay, well, Hellboy's now going to have it. He's going to be, kicking some ass with the holy shovel, but he swings it through the air at the dead and they just all fall down.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's where I'm like, okay, was this in my mind, I go cynical. I'm like, was this a budgetary thing? Was this a time thing? Because if it's a budgetary thing, that's why, again, get that fucking spider out, get the fucking snake out, and give me, because these are people in practical kind of dead makeup and undead zombie type makeup. Spend more time there. Give me a fight scene with the holy shovel, and give me some more of that. And I need more of that, not more spider.
Yeah,
that was my problem with it.
Yeah, now that you mention it, that you're saying that, like, for me, that this actually is like the biggest fight scene, and like I like the fact that, like, this Hellboy is like more a horror film, but I actually would have liked to see, like, some more action stuff. That kind of a little let down at how little of that we get in this film,
Yeah, and especially from, here's a director, one half of all those movies we mentioned, Crank, Spirit of Vengeance, high octane, high action.
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
what I mean. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, if this is, again, maybe it's time. This is like an hour 39 minutes. It's not even a 2-hour film, which is fine. I'm good with the brisk brisk film. But if it's budget and you just blew all your budget early on the CGI and stuff, you don't need that. And I would have rather seen that fight in the church because that is your big set piece, really. Because we'll talk about the ending fight, quote unquote, or lack thereof, in just a second. But yeah, that's your big set piece, is the big church fight. So I would have liked him, lopping off some heads or something with a holy shovel, or maybe when you slice one of them, they turn to dust like Blade killing a vampire or something. I don't know, anything.
Right.
Like give me some fights where he just kind of swings it through the air and it's like, okay, time to lay down, guys. That's all you kind of get there. Anyway, let's get to the ending here, Andrew. I think we've waited long enough. So, Hellboy and Tom, they head up to what is referred to as the Hurricane, where the Crooked Man lives. There's some dialogue about, was maybe a hurricane actually took out all these trees and things like that, or maybe it's kind of a gateway to another universe, or the old gods kind of trying to come through. There's a lot of talk like that. But they head up to the Hurricane, and Bobby Joe, she's supposed to stay put, but she decides to go down to an abandoned coal mine shaft with the old Reverend for what turns out to be nothing and no reason really. Like it, all that happens down there is the Reverend is kind of pecked to death by crows. They peck out one of his eyes, which he's blind, so no big loss there. And Bobby Joe kind of bumps into that spider from earlier, and there's a little subplot she has where she's been doing research into the occult and witchcraft and casting spells. She even talks to Cora about, how do you do magic, and you gotta believe it in your heart type of thing. So she casts a spell on the spider, takes care of that. It goes back down to its shrunken size, and that kind of wraps up her subplot. And it really, everything they're doing in that tunnel has really no bearing on the story.
Yeah, because they're like, oh, like, the mines are like the veins of, like, the land or whatever, and, like, she's like, oh, we're gonna go down here and we're gonna try and, like, sabotage the Crooked Man. And, like, you're right, like, they go down there and, like, nothing really comes of it. Like, she gets the spider, but she wasn't down there to get the spider in the first place.
Right. Yeah. They're yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so, like, the butler fucking ends up dead,
Yeah, like he goes down there and dies for no reason. And again, like I said, that they because there's a lot of talk when they go down there about, well, this could be another, they look at these old abandoned mine shafts like portals for the old gods and stuff like that too, and for evil and blah blah blah. And like, yeah, her subplot just goes nowhere. I mean, I guess it's to forward her using spells. I mean, I don't know, maybe argue that's sequel bait type of stuff. Well, it's more to come with her using magic in future films, but you're kind of wasting the opportunity. She could have been involved with the fight at the end with Hellboy or something. She could have been in the house, maybe a little damsel in distress situation or something. That house that we'll talk about in a minute where Hellboy goes, the mansion, there's a lot of like supernatural booby traps and sucking you into astral planes. Maybe she could have been involved in all that. Something to do other than, I mean, it would have been better if she just sat at the church when it's see her no more, because it's about the same amount of wasted time.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Either have her at the mansion and use the spell there, like on the Crooked Man, to help with that, or just like let's not see her again until the very end.
She could have been up. She could have not went down there, and she could have been like, oh fuck it, I'm going up to the hurricane, and she's the one that breaks Hellboy out of his astral plane kind of spell he gets sucked into.
Yeah. I agree.
I mean, there's something for her to do and be like, hey, Bobby Joe, why are you using magic? You're not supposed to do that, you stupid bitch. And like, then we go on. You know what I mean? He gives her a little talking to, and then we move on, and then we beat the Crooked Man's ass.
We actually do get a little bit of, the preacher's like, oh, like, I'm blind, but like, the only thing I see is, like, how scared of, Hellboy is of, like, telling you how he feels about you. So, we get, that little tidbit of, like, little romance.
Overly
subplot.
insightful supporting characters. So meanwhile, up at the old Crooked Man mansion, a couple things happen. Tom, he's kind of brought into a fight with Effie. He ends up boning her out the window. And he's fighting Effie, and Hellboy's just fighting the wind. Did you notice that? Yeah. At one point, he's just slapping at the wind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, hey, this is a hell of a third act, ain't it? He's boning this bitch out the window, and Hellboy's over here fighting some leaves. The mansion hijinks, they eventually end with Hellboy laying the smackdown on the Crooked Man, and by laying the smackdown, Andrew, I mean pushing him down some steps and then shooting him in the head.
Yeah,
that's all you get.
Let's push the old man down some stairs.
Yeah,
and blow his fucking head clean off.
Yeah. It's like pushing an elderly man down to claim his insurance and his life insurance, and like they push him down some steps a couple times, and then they shoot him in the head, and his head's full of like copper coins, because that's how it's all the souls he's claimed.
Pennies, a penny for every soul that he's collected.
But if you were hoping, okay, well, spider fight wasn't for me, snake kind of cool, church fight kind of a cock tease, all right, we're going to get a cool Crooked Man fight, some cool supernatural fighting, stuff like that. Now they shove him down the steps.
Yeah.
That's all you get. You don't get a big third act fight, and I think this is where the film kind of really lets you down, is in this final act. We got the astral plane stuff with Hellboy, and there's a subplot of him kind of seeing his mother and the torture she's going through for also being a witch, because he's kind of born from a witch and those kind of things. And we get a little bit of character building with that. But as far as the actual resolution with the Crooked Man, pretty big letdown.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that's you had asked me in the beginning like what this movie did right and what it's done wrong, and I think that this is definitely like the anticlimactic end. I think is definitely
Yeah.
what it's done wrong. Like I was hoping for more. Just like we said, push down the stairs, shoot him in the head, and let's go home, folks.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. That's all, folks.
Fuck this guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's push this geriatric down the stairs, this infirm old man, basically. It's not like he's even powerful at all. Like he's you know, like I could do the same to any old man on the street right now, Andrew. He's supposed to be like this all powerful kind of like demonic figure, and he dies by being pushed down some steps.
Yeah, yeah. It's just very let down with that whole aspect
very,
of the movie.
Very disappointing ending otherwise for pretty solid stuff we saw so far. The last thing to mention, too, at the ending here, obviously the Crooked Man had been wanting Tom's bone the whole movie, and he doesn't get it. And then Hellboy kind of at the end, we get this little aside with him and Tom, and he's like, hey, I think the power was inside you all along, Tom, and maybe it is the friends we made along the way, huh? And that's where it kind of ends with that kind of story, and Bobby Joe and him kind of go off to their next adventure. And we do get a little kind of stinger at the end with what do they do with Effie. She was blown out the window before. Tom, for some reason, kept a hold of his dad's bridle when he was in horse mode, and so they decided to bewitch her and turn her into a horse. And you see her tied to a tree at the end with kind of painted on her, "Beware, I am a witch." I don't think that's going to stop a horse thief, though.
Right.
I would be like, this motherfucker lying. You ain't no witch.
You ain't no fucking
Come
witch.
here. I'm about to fuck this horse puss. You ain't no damn witch. All right, Andrew. Let's review this thing. Give us your review, score, and final thoughts for Hellboy and the Crooked Penis Man.
Yeah, so score wise, I'm gonna give it a solid 6. I think this is a decent film. I like the direction that it went in, more horror aspect. Again, I think the final act definitely falls short, leaves a lot to be desired. But if they made another one, I would actually be really interested to see if they kept making more of these. I like the setting, I like the world, I like the actor. Let's see what else they can do with it. I'd be interested to see what happens.
That was going to be a follow-up question I had to whatever your review was, is whether you'd be in for another movie, and I would be too. The fact is, I don't know if that's going to happen. It seems like a long shot because this got a UK release and theatrically, and it was shoved right to video on demand, streaming, rental in the US a few weeks later. No theatrical release that I remember hearing about. So it kind of just got buried here. I don't know how it did box office in the UK, but it would worry me that there would be enough legs for it to have a sequel, since they've just kind of dumped it to rental and streaming.
It's
which is kind of sad.
Yeah, no, it's such a shame because as much as I like Guillermo del Toro's version of Hellboy, it's
which is never happening, folks. There will never be a third one. So shut up.
Exactly.
It's never happening.
Like his is like a much more magical and whimsical, fucking take on this character. We get to see all this cool magic stuff. And that's all fun, but I like this much more serious, grounded version of Hellboy. And from what I remember in the David Harbour version of Hellboy, and I was a little surprised that they're like, well, no more David Harbour. We're working on another reboot of Hellboy.
Yeah.
And we got this, and then to hear that it came straight to streaming here, it's a little disappointing, you know, like because I like Hellboy is like such a cool property, and like there's so much like cool stuff like in those comics that like you know you can make movies about, and it just doesn't seem like either either the audience like gives a shit like about Hellboy like in general, or what's going on that you know is just these movies like you know aren't getting the traction that I would hope that they would get, you know.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah, it's just I agree, like you know as much as I would like to see another one, I don't see how they're going to make another one, you know, like I don't see how this movie makes its money back
yeah.
to
I
justify
didn't look
making a
up.
sequel.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't look up the budget or anything. I don't know what the numbers are, and I don't know what the box office was in the UK. But yeah, just with that reality, I don't think it'd be hard. It'd be hard pressed to kind of see that they would do it. And like I said, I think it was with those decisions and how it's been treated as a property. I kind of almost like it's been set up to fail in a way.
Yeah.
It was not been marketed. It was dumped to theaters in the UK. No theatrical release here. It's kind of been set up to fail, and it's kind of weird that you would do that to this property when, like you said, the David Harbour one not so much well received. People are still been clamoring to see Guillermo del Toro come back and Ron Perlman come back, so there's still some interest for that, and at least for the character in some way. And then you reboot it a third time, and you kind of just feels like you're just like half-assing it. I don't know. Like, you know, you're not giving it the chance to succeed that you feel like you should be when, you know, you've got the creator, Mike Mignola, like all these people that are behind the comics are involved with it. It's just like, I don't know, like we made it, here it is. No one seems to want it. Let's dump it on streaming. So
Yeah.
it's sad because I agree with you. I think it's a 6. I think it's decent. Like I said, pros, great mood, great atmosphere, some creepy moments, largely practical effects, some good wire work, decent Hellboy performance from our new Hellboy actor. Cons, yeah, bland cinematography, some rough CGI that you don't need, those forced Southern accents that we talked about, and a generic story that kind of lets you down in the third act when you really want it to kind of ramp up a little bit and deliver on some of those creepy moments, and a kind of a good tussle and fight between Hellboy and the Crooked Man in some way, whether it's on Hellboy's terms or the Crooked Man in his supernatural terms. And you don't really get that, but there's enough there in the middle, and there's enough ideas, and there's enough foundation there that I would want to see a sequel, maybe a little bit higher budgeted. But again, I just don't think that's the world we're living in when it comes to this film. If you're listening to this, hopefully you'll check it out. Hopefully you've already checked it out and kind of gave it a view or bought it on demand or VOD or whatever. But, you know, hopefully there will be kind of a groundswell. Hopefully this will be one of those that catches on and does well at home and kind of becomes one of those cult classics. And maybe we do get another story. Maybe Hellboy does get to go into the 60s, and we'll see Hellboy during the free love era. Hellboy meets the Beatles.
There you
Let's
go.
do it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. He shoots John Lennon in the face because he was possessed. Anything else, Andrew?
No, I think that's going to be it.
All right, that's it for this episode, folks. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Feel free to send us an email or get in touch with us on social media. Andrew, thanks for joining me again. Towel Capes will return. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Until next time, bye, guys.
Later.